removal. The word is a little bit misleading because you think, oh, remove, erase, get rid of. But in CivPro, remove is just basically a tactic to move a case from state to federal after it's been filed. How does that happen? Today I will talk about the who's, what's, when's, why's, and where's having to do with removal. As always, at the end of the video, I will include a chart that I created while studying for the bar exam. Hopefully it's helpful. I'm a visual learner, so it's just very simple, bare bones. Anyways, let's jump in. Who can remove? Not anyone can remove. Only the defendant. That's right, not the plaintiff, just the defendant. What cases can be removed? As known, subject matter jurisdiction for federal courts is broken off mainly into two: diversity jurisdiction and federal question jurisdiction. Now, for cases involving removal with diversity jurisdiction, let's go back a bit. What is diversity jurisdiction? Diversity is when you have complete diversity between the plaintiff and the defendant, which means, did I say plaintiff and defendant? Which means that the plaintiff and the defendant are not from the same state. So that's one section. The next part is, so complete diversity plus the amount in controversy must exceed $75,000. Okay, suppose we do have complete diversity. The only person who can remove, of course, is the defendant. Now, if there is more than one defendant, what happens? You need to get approval from both, consent from both. If we are dealing with federal question, going back, diversity jurisdiction. There's a little caveat, which is that if the defendant or defendants, or one of the defendants, is from the forum state, then the defendant cannot remove or move the case from state court to federal court. What is the forum state? The forum state is where the case is filed. So if, for example, if the case were filed in Miami, Florida, the forum state would be Florida. If the defendant, assuming there's one defendant, is from Illinois, there's no issue because the forum state and the defendant are not from the same state. But if the defendant was from Florida and the state court case was in Florida, then you cannot remove. That is a limitation. Now, with federal question jurisdiction, what is federal question again? Federal question is when the plaintiff pleads in the complaint or the summons an issue arising under federal law, treaties, the U.S. Constitution, all that jazz, the U.S. tax code, all that jazz. There are really no restrictions. If there's federal question jurisdiction, there's no issue about the forum state and the defendant being from the same state. It's a completely different ballpark. It's important to separate complete diversity jurisdiction and federal question jurisdiction. Federal question jurisdiction, you can remove all day long. But with diversity jurisdiction, you do have that limitation that you cannot have the defendant and the forum state be the same state. When can you remove? No later than 30 days after service of process. What is service of process? I have another video on it, but to keep things short, service of process is when you, the defendant, have noticed that there is a case against you, whether that be a complaint or a summons. The defendant must file for removal within 30 days of receiving service of process. That's the general rule. There is an exception when it's involving diversity jurisdiction. So diversity, that's when you cannot remove later than a year after receiving service of process. So a way to break it down could be federal question, 30 days. Diversity, no more than a year. So you have the limitation of 30 days and a year. I'm going to repeat that one more time. So there's two ways that you can get into federal court with subject matter jurisdiction. It's diversity jurisdiction and federal question, which I've mentioned a couple times in this video. The timeliness factor for federal question is no more than 30 days after the defendant has received service of process notice that there is a civil case. Diversity jurisdiction is the timeliness factor is no more than 1 year. State court can be moved to where the federal judicial district is. So suppose the case was filed in Miami, Florida, in the state court of Miami. That means that it can only be removed to the federal judicial court that's located in downtown Miami because it's the area that corresponds. Difficult to conceptualize, but honestly, once you get the hang of it, removal's kind of fun with diversity jurisdiction and federal question thrown into the mix. So here we go. This is where it's going to be. I'm going to explain it first before I start throwing in the states. So first we have the plaintiff. The plaintiff is the person that's suing another person. The defendant is the one that's defending the claim. So we have plaintiff versus defendant. I'm going to put a state, the state where the plaintiff is domiciled. Then I'm going to put the state where the defendant is domiciled. And then the forum state, which I explained before, is where the case is filed. So I'm going to put 3 different states here. Then in the analysis, we're going to analyze whether diversity jurisdiction applies, which is complete diversity plus the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Then whether federal question applies, cases that arise under the U.S. Constitution, treaties, federal laws. And then finally, I'm going to ask, was it filed timely? I mean, I'm not really going to give dates, but we're just going to get into the habit of analyzing it that way because questions can be sneaky, especially with the time, whether it was filed timely. Okay, let's begin. I realized that the ring light was a little annoying, so I turned it off just for this section. Okay, what do we have here? Plaintiff, domiciled in Georgia. Defendant, domiciled in Tennessee. The plaintiff filed the case in Alaska. It's also important to note that this only works with civil cases. Criminal cases are a completely different ball game, which I will cover in later videos once I get to criminal law and criminal procedures. Anyway, so we have Georgia, Tennessee, Alaska. Let's go for the first one. Diversity. Is there complete diversity between the claimants? Georgia is not the same state as Tennessee. So we give it a check mark. Yes, that's the right way. Is the amount in controversy more than 75,000? Yes, we're going to assume yes. Check. Okay, so it fits diversity. So we don't really have to check unless it's like, oh, it's a case arising from the U.S. Constitution. Then we're like, okay, federal question. So it could be either or. And then was it filed timely? And what is the threshold for filed timely? The defendant had 30 days from when the service of process from the plaintiff to file that motion in the county clerk's office. And let's go to the next scenario. Okay, now we have the plaintiff is still domiciled in Georgia, the defendant is domiciled in Florida, and the forum state is in Florida. Okay, the defendant now wants to remove. Uh-oh, we have an issue. The defendant and the forum state are the same state. This is a big no-no. Cannot remove. Even if the defendant tries to remove, what can the plaintiff do? The plaintiff can say, no, I don't want removal. And what is that process called? Remand. Just some legal jargon you're just going to have to get used to. Okay, so then we have, although we have complete diversity and the amount in controversy is more than 75,000, there is that limitation that the defendant and the forum state cannot be from the same state. So this is a no. No removal will be able to be processed correctly. Here we have plaintiff domiciled in Florida, defendant domiciled in Florida, and forum state in Tennessee. Okay, so we look here. Defendant state and the forum state. They are different. Yes, that works for removal. Okay, we're good. Now we go down to diversity jurisdiction. Is there complete diversity? You look here and here. Uh-oh, they are both from Florida. There is no complete diversity. You don't even have to look at the amount in controversy because that's automatically a no. But then you're like, wait a minute, so no diversity. Is there a federal question? Again, no hypotheticals, but that's the analysis you would go through. You would check this, and then the final question is, was it filed timely? I cannot overemphasize that because I have gotten questions where I'm checking the removal and then the complete diversity, and then they get me with, oh, it was filed 45 days after the service of process. No. Okay, next. The plaintiff is domiciled in Arkansas. The defendants, 2 defendants, are domiciled in Florida, so we have 1. And then we have the second one in Texas. Okay. The defendants want to remove. Okay, more than 1 defendant can remove, but you need the consent from both. But first, before we jump to conclusions, we need to check whether they are from the same state. So the forum state is Missouri, and we have Florida, Texas, and Missouri. There is no issue with removal, so we give it a check. Now we have to continue the analysis. Diversity jurisdiction. Is there complete diversity? Let's see. The plaintiff is from Arkansas, and the defendants are from Florida and Texas. Check. Amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Check. Check. Even so, check. Is there a federal question jurisdiction? Maybe. And then finally, was it filed timely? So this would have no issue with removal. Plaintiff is from Texas. Defendants are from Florida and Texas. And the forum state is Missouri. So, okay, let's see if there's an issue with removal. We have the states of Florida, Texas, and Missouri. They're all 3 different states. So, removal, we give it a check mark. Now, we're going to go for complete diversity. Is there complete diversity? Texas, Florida, and Texas. Well, one of the defendants is completely diverse, Texas and Florida, but the other defendant, Texas and Texas, no can do. No complete diversity. Now, a way to remedy this would be drop the Texan. But again, so no diversity. Don't need to look at the amount in controversy, but there could be a federal question that could bring this back into the ball game. And then finally ask whether it was filed timely. I hope you're getting the hang of it. It's kind of like a puzzle. You need to check. First, I would check this, the defendant and forum state, to make sure they're not the same state. And then after that, go through the federal jurisdiction, the subject matter jurisdiction, which would be diversity and federal question. Last time in the subject matter jurisdiction video, I mentioned the subculture of supplemental jurisdiction. How does that play in with removal? So if the federal court has jurisdiction over the state claim through supplemental jurisdiction, if it's from the same common operative nucleus fact, I always get the words jumbled together, but if it's from the same transaction or occurrence, like if it has the same nucleus of conception of the incident where it happened, then that also gets carried along with this whole analysis that I was doing. So if a state claim does have supplemental jurisdiction, does not have diversity or federal question that it would normally have, it just tags along with the one that gives it, with the claim that gives it federal jurisdiction. Okay, that was confusing. If supplemental jurisdiction is involved, the removal process works. Basically, that's all I'm saying. That's all for now. As promised, I'll include right now my chart. And good luck studying, good luck in law school. It's a long journey, but it's worth it. Bye. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe.